Welcome to Becoming Me Again, the interview series that is all about moving from feeling lost, stuck and invisible to becoming the woman you know in your heart that you truly long to be. I'm Karina.
And I'm Sophie, and together we're the founders of Reclaim Her. If you are ready to live your life by design and express more of your beautiful, brave heart, then you're going to be truly inspired by our gorgeously dynamic speaker today, Remi Pearson. Remi is a wealth of wisdom for claiming more happiness and more meaning in our lives. She's a best-selling author, a world-leading coach, and a multi-award-winning entrepreneur. Remi, we are so ready to dive into this today. Welcome.
Hello. Let's dive.
So, Remi, as the founder of the highly successful Coaching Institute, you've clearly, made some bold decisions to follow your passion, but I'm imagining there's been a journey. Would you like to take us, back to the start and chat a little bit about the challenges along the way as well?
I never envisioned having what it's become. I never envisioned any of this. This was not my intention when I began. 18 years ago, I was suicidal. I was completely stuck in a rut. I did not believe in anything, including myself. Everywhere I looked, I felt despair, overwhelm, fear. What does it matter? I just had got myself so in a rut. I say I had a rut so deep, it had a TV, carpets, and its own postcode. Like I'd moved into the rut. And I was 38 and I realized I spent 38 years learning how to not feel good in myself. And I didn't know I'd done that. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't by design. I wasn't trying to not be happy, but I arrived at 38 and I didn't want to get out of bed. And for 2 weeks there, I was contemplating, what's the point? And I just stood there one day thinking, if I move forward, it won't matter. If I move backwards, I'll get judged. If I go sideways, I'll get it wrong. And if I go that way, I don't care anyway. I was just literally just stood there for an hour, not moving, with the futility of anything. That's the level of overwhelm I'd done to myself. I was catastrophizing, dramatizing, black and white thinking, pretty well anything you could do in terms of cognitive behavioral therapy to not be empowered. I was doing. I didn't know it, but I had the T-shirt on it. Ask me, I'm messing it up. Ask me how. And it occurred to me as I stood there, there are amazing people in life right now who inspire me, who have backgrounds that are filled with more trauma and more tragedy than I'll ever know. And I thought of Nelson Mandela. He spent 27 years in solitary and came out inspiring. I couldn't do one day and inspire, not one day with freedom. And it came to me, so how did he do it? And I'm not saying I know his experience, I don't, but the question was a better question than what's wrong? What's wrong with me? Why is it so hard for me? Why am I getting it wrong? I could do negative questions all day, but the one good question turned it around. How has he managed to turn his life into one of inspiration and example and grace? And how can I do that for me? Now, I don't obviously have the answer for him, but he provided the impetus for me to start answering that question for me. 2 weeks later, I was training to become a coach, not to coach, just to learn how to be an effective human being. And I committed in that moment for I've spent 38 years learning how to suck at this. This is so true. I'm going to invest the next 38 years learning how to feel grace, learning how to feel good about myself, to feel empowered, or whatever it is I wanted to feel. I wanted to have some agency over this. And up until then, I had none.
Well, that leads to a question that I'm sure we're all asking, which is, and that is?
Okay, good point.
Can you share some of your wisdom now?
No.
I'm like, I'm ready. I'm thinking.
So the first part, everybody's journey is going to be different. And if anyone can relate to my story up until this moment, and you're asking some good questions, like how can I turn it around? Everyone's pathway is going to be uniquely for ourselves. I can only speak to my experience, and if that provides inspiration or an example or perhaps a lesson of what not to do, wonderful. But this is my journey. This is how I did it, not with deliberate intent. I stumbled into each answer for me. I didn't think, oh, now I'll do that and that will make me feel better. I didn't have that capability. But what I did know was doing what I was doing wasn't working. So for me, step one was self-awareness and ownership. Is what I'm doing working? Is the way I'm approaching it ever going to work? Like I've given it a red hot go, 38 years of blaming, beating up on myself, telling myself it's too hard. Is it ever going to work? So for me, it was claiming some and owning my part in where I'd got myself to. And my willingness to own that meant I was empowered then to do something about it, because I could blame and outsource how I got where I was all day. It wasn't going to do anything for me. We can't change ourselves because somebody or something else changes. It's me. So that was my first huge step. And that was scary because then I had to grieve all the times I hadn't taken ownership and all the times I hadn't taken responsibility and all the times I thought somebody else had to make me happy or someone else had to change or something had to be different. And there was a lot of grief there. I think I cried for 2 weeks, just grieving what I'd given up, waiting to be rescued. And then on the other side of that became the process of being willing to question. We have only 2 ways to approach life: unexamined thoughts or examined thoughts. That's it. And I began to examine my thoughts and ask myself, is that true? Is it true that I can't turn this around? Is it true that I'm going to stay this stuck? The answer is no. It was all perception. One of the first things we learn in coaching is perception creates our reality. There is no reality beyond that which we create. So I moved from no awareness to some self-awareness, then to responsibility, then to questioning my beliefs and what I had decided was true about myself, that I wasn't capable. What is true about the world? It's hostile. What was true about others? They couldn't be trusted. I began to question the 3 parts of my life: myself, others, and my world. And then it became, well, if I'm going to question it, who in the world has the most updated, phenomenal, amazing, growth-filled, inspiring life? And what do they believe? Shockingly, ladies, they didn't believe they were doomed. They didn't believe they had, I can't believe it. How is it not caught on? My worldview, I don't understand. And I found people who believed that they could live, that how it was isn't how it was going to stay. They believed in the impermanence of everything. I found and discovered that if we believe in a gentle heart and we're compassionate with ourselves, we have a softer life and a softer landing. I began to be willing to critically question these beliefs that didn't support a beautiful, graceful life and replace them with those I found around me who did. And then eventually, over the next 2 years, I began to practice coming from that place. Well, what if it's true I'm capable? What if it's true I can learn? What if it's true I can reclaim myself? What would I do now? And I took little step after little step. I wasn't ready for anything big. I became a coach to save myself. I did not become a coach to coach anyone. So every step I took was a triumph over my old thinking. And slowly, those little steps, because I was just stuck, little step after little step, this became unrecognizable. I was so far away from my origin and somewhere else, I couldn't get back to that stuck space anymore. And that's when things began to really take off for me in amazing ways.
I Sorry, I thought you had a question, Sophie. Do you want?
I do, actually. I love, well, first of all, there's so many questions, actually, so much unpacking I want to do there. But some of the things that I really want to draw out was that step by step. You know, we seem to want to make these big leaps, but often they're just small steps that we're making, from what I'm hearing, Remi, yes?
Yeah, for me. Others teach massive action is what it takes. I'm speaking from my experience. For me, my gremlin in my head, that negative self-talk that I used to have, I don't have it now, but back then it ruled the show. And if I took a big step, it was going to stop me. It was going to want me not to do that, because our brain really was designed for one thing: to keep us safe, prevent us getting hurt, and save us from threats that it's anticipating. And if we keep allowing it to take over, it eventually becomes the ruler of our world. And it was the ruler of my world. So a little tiny step that snuck under the gremlin, it barely noticed I was doing anything. So I'd read a chapter of a book. I would do a practice coaching session. I would go to a class on coaching. These were very seismic steps for me, but they were just small enough that my negative critical voice didn't jump in and go, I think you should watch TV. I think you should take it easy today. I think what if it doesn't work out? What if you make that voice? I just came in. That's what worked for me. The tinier the step, the more steps I could take in a week, rather than this on Friday, I'll launch myself. That wasn't available to me.
Yeah, I just want to, what I notice in what you were saying is that you have to make a decision. It's like if there was a decision point for you to go, I am going to, I don't know quite how to name this, but be more, become more, choose happiness, choose to follow a path. Can you talk more about that need to find that self-responsibility? I think it's hard for some women.
I think before self-responsibility, it's have a look at my life. For me, I had to look at my life and be truthful in my assessment of it. I was not happy. I did not feel successful. I did not feel inner grace. I did not feel that I mattered. Well, no one's going to come along and give me, here's your piece of you matter. Here's your where you're enough. No one can do that for me. No one ever could. But I didn't know how to do it for myself. So that first piece for me was look at my life. How's it going? Is it working for me or is it working against me? And not all of us want to make that honest assessment. And this is me not advocating for anything for anyone. But for me, living in that space of constant stuckness, I was tired, and I was so sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. I was tired of feeling it didn't matter and I didn't matter. I wanted more for me. It wasn't even a decision. It was more just a slow awakening that if I wanted different or better, maybe it was for me to do instead of waiting for the world to do something for me. Maybe the world, frankly, didn't have to care about the quality of my life until I did. Maybe what I wanted to have show up would show up when I showed up. But sitting at home watching reruns of I Dream of Jeannie, shockingly, nobody was knocking at the door wanting to give me a great life. Can't believe it. It should have worked. I tried so hard. So maybe it was for me to go outside the door. Maybe it was for me to get across the threshold of my fears and start figuring out, well, how do I live a life rather than expecting life to live me, which is what I'd done.
So Remi, I wanted to ask you, actually, you were speaking about, how we can move ourselves forwards. And one of the things you mentioned was looking to the people that you have around you, modeling yourself and so forth on perhaps inspirational people. That's a wonderful tool, and I can see its impact on the inner dialogue. And I'm wondering what else you might have to offer on that front, how we can look to, tools and techniques that might help us with changing that inner dialogue.
I am a huge believer in if I'm not doing what works, I should stop having a view about it and go and hang out with the people who are doing what works. So my first and biggest success when I did, because I became in demand as a coach, obviously the story has a the lovely hero's arc that we want for ourselves, I became very in-demand coach. My school, the Coaching Institute, and then the International Coaching Institute exploded. The dialogue happened even though outside success was happening. So there's two worlds going on. There's the external world and what's happening and what you're creating and what you're capable of doing and where you're competent and where you're skilled. And then there's the internal, but how you feel about yourself. Mm-hmm. And I realized I could have external everything and still not have internal grace. And I thought, hilariously, that if I got enough, won enough, had enough success, always on the outside, this would become peaceful. It didn't. I want my money back. It didn't change. And the success on the outside was ridiculous. You know, we're in 100 countries now. We've been serving for nearly 20 years. It's been amazing. But this didn't care. It just carried on. You're not enough. You're not worthy. It's just, okay. So it's true what everyone's been saying for millennia, that outside success does not shape your inside. Oh my gosh, maybe I should finally listen. So I tried the way that everyone told me wouldn't work. So all the sages and the spiritual wise people have told us through the ages, outside success will not change your inner world. It's true. I finally, after many tests, can confirm it doesn't work. We cannot compensate for what we feel we lack with doing things outside really well. That the really good sports car that I have in no way compensates for my lack of self-worth. And people might be listening to this going, we know that. But even though I knew it, I didn't know it. Mm. And I could see myself getting the outside success, still denying the truth that it out there will not change in here, that I had to start the inner journey. And so there's three parts to the story. There's the story when I was stuck for the first part of my life. Then there's the turnaround when I began to figure out how to make life work for me on the outside. But the true journey was the journey to myself, which is the third, I believe, everyone's third journey. I think everyone's got this same heroic story for themselves if they want to claim it. It's the I'm stuck in the ordinary world where things aren't working. I'm going to go pursue what I think out in the world will give me what I want, which is what I did, only to realize, it was always in me. Now I looked in me. I was looking everywhere. I couldn't find enlightenment. I'm like, it's good. I couldn't find it. I was looking inside and I was coming up with nothing. And I was so frustrated. So I turned my frustration into the useless activity of more external success because I still hadn't learned my lesson. And so another sports car, I'm sure that will help. But it just didn't. And so finally, when there was nothing left to prove, I guess, to myself on the outside, maybe I need to figure out what they're talking about and start looking on the inside. So this is where my major work is now. It's where I coach from. It's where I train from. It's where I do my best to live from with as much grace as I can. I misstep and misfire every day. Every day I misfire and I forget. And I pretend that the external world is shaping me. I pretend that someone is doing something to me. I forget all the time and pretend that it out there is determining my internal reality. And then I keep coming back to me. And so the way I began the journey, and the journey to ourselves, I feel, is a lifetime. Every day we will get it in you. I was saying to you off camera, Sophie, each week goes past and I arrive at today, I go, I'm getting it. Then a week goes past. Yeah, I didn't have anything. Yeah, no, I didn't know. And then a week goes past. This is it. Yeah, no, it's, and I've been doing that now for years. One day again, I'm a little bit of a meandering stream when it comes to learning about life and grace. One day, perhaps I'll arrive at the point, it's a lifetime. So my first step was, And I think, is it okay if we talk about the internal journey rather than how to be successful on the outside?
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
yeah,
yeah, it's vital. Love to
yeah.
hear.
So for me, first step, and again, everyone's journey is different, but what has worked and what I teach that really works is the first step is to pause. It's the gap between stimulus and response. That pause is life. Life is not what they say and what you say back. Life is not what happens to you and what you happen back. Life is not event in and your response. Life is there in that gap. And most of us live in stimulus response, stimulus response. You say that, I say that. You do that, I do that. And there's this reactivity that most of us have trained ourselves to stay stuck in. That reactivity is how we don't live. That reactivity is how we ignore ourselves. And that reactivity is how we avoid us. And so that happened. If we can see that as the gift. So someone says something mean, however we define mean. Someone says something we don't like, and we react with hostility or try and stop it or say we're hurt or fire back. In doing that, what we're saying, and I love that my hands end like this. This is so true. Goodness, I've only just realized this in all these years. That in this moment, when we're here in this fast reactivity, we are forgetting that this was the gift for us. And in our fast response, I could cry. We're forgetting this is a gift. This is the gift. Those harsh words, that event we didn't want to happen, that thing that we didn't want. In that fast response, we're rejecting the gift. We're saying, I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. That's not what I want. Life, I want something else. Life, stop giving me that. We're rejecting the gift. And if we can pause and see that that coming in is the gift, not happening to us, not happening to hurt us, but happening for us, we will pause and figure out the gift. And in that gap there, that pause, the power of the pause is where we become what I call bravehearted, where instead of living on automatic and without intentionality, we are going to pause long enough to figure out how something, inverted commas, mean could be a gift for me. How is that for me when every part of me wants to reject it and toss it back at them and not have it and make them wrong and blame them and shame them? Every part of me tells me that should not happen like that. Stop. How is that a gift? And this is the real work. Well, I don't know how it's a gift. Right now, it just feels like it hurts. But if in our first step, we can just pause and not fire back, we have just begun the first journey to ultimate and intentional living, the ultimate in being conscious, because that fast response has no consciousness. It is automatic. It is pattern behaviors, conditioned behaviors from our childhood. It will do nothing to progress us, to grow us, to give us the learning. It will never satisfy our yearning to be enough. Every time we respond rapidly, we are giving up in that moment another opportunity to know and claim ourselves. So let's pause and just stop. This got said, and I'm not firing back. And the first time we do it and we just hold, so our movement goes from this to this. And we just hold the hurt and the anger and whatever it is, and that we just hold it. And we will vibrate and shake with the desire to fire back. Every part of us will be telling us, fire back, don't take that. I'm not a doormat, whatever it is, just hold your hurt. Be with my hurt. And I learned, again, I ain't going to do it easy. So this was hard. I don't take a direct route on anything. I just sat with my hurt. They said that thing happened that I didn't like, that hurt me. I'm just going to sit with it. In the beginning, it is overwhelming. The feeling of outrage, hurt, sadness, grief, anger, rage, desire to reject it, to blame. Our desire to offload this hurt and chuck it back at the world is overwhelming. And if you do this, whoever's listening, if you attempt this, you will probably suck the first 5, 10, 15, 20 times, because to sit with hurt rather than outsource it and make somebody else responsible for it is the toughest thing we will learn how to do. So we're going to sit with it and just hold it. And it's going to feel overwhelming and terrifying. And we'll be lost. And we're going to sit with that. And we're going to cry through it. the amount of times I would go into another room in fetal position, literally on the floor, hugging a pillow, crying, shaking with the feeling of someone do something with my hurt. Please, someone take it away. And I'm just sitting there on my own with it. I'm like, this is empowerment. This is enlightenment. This sucks. And you sit with it. And then, if we can, true braveheartedness is I'm going to feel it in my body. They said that thing happened that I didn't want, that I don't like, that my ego tells me I don't deserve and shouldn't happen. And my ego, head is ego, body is feelings. And all the time we're doing, we're fighting back, we're coming from ego, coming from ego, coming from ego, like this doesn't have a say. And now I'm going to sit in this room and I'm quietly listen to this part. This, you can go and want to yell at that person, but I'm still going to sit with this. Where do I feel it? I feel it here. Hello, I'm here. I feel you. I'm here. And do this through tears and snot and whatever else goes on for you. But this is what it is to get to the other side of our suffering, is to go into the suffering. But every time we offload it onto someone, or we argue with it, or we deny it, or we reject it, or we say it shouldn't be like that, every time we do it, we're just saying, I'm going to suffer again the next time this happens. So we're going to pause. Go inside. Where are you? Where do you hurt? I'm here. And we're going to speak to that inner child, that part of us that the ego has been protecting so well all these years by yelling back at that person or rejecting that event or judging or harshly criticizing. And instead of letting this protect the inner child, we are going to visit the inner child for the first time for some of us in our whole lives and say, I'm here. What do you want me to know? What are you feeling? What's going on for you? How is this for you? I'm here. And then we're going to do validation. There's a whole script that we do, and we sit with that hurt for the first time instead of having our ego defend the hurt. We, the best of us, sits with the hurt. Eventually, not the first time, not the second time, eventually this becomes automatic. Eventually you move from stimulus response to stimulus gift, another opportunity to go inside, another opportunity to go inside, another, and eventually we realize all these moments that aren't to our liking are really opportunities for us to face where we haven't healed. And if we do it enough and do it enough, eventually when we go to look inside for our strength, our wisdom, our courage, our love, our grace, all those times we didn't just respond, come back in moments of grace. And that person now will say that hurtful thing and will be capable of, thank you. I'm okay, I can handle it. And to get to the moment I can handle the world not being to my liking, I can handle the person not being exactly as I want them to be, to get to that point where as it is as I can handle it, is to me we don't need to offload anymore. Because all we're doing is learning to learn. All we're learning is I can handle all of me. They weren't hurting me. They were saying words that I interpreted as hurt because I haven't healed my hurt. I heal my hurt. I now will hear your hurt in your words rather than the anger or you trying to hurt me. I hear your hurt. And so the pause becomes grace and becomes love and becomes compassion. And we do this enough every single day, all day if we need to. For me, it's been all day, most days, doing the work and visiting and healing and revisiting every day until I hear you. I hear your hurt. I know hurt people hurt people. I know you're hurting. And whilst that's not for me to heal, because I can't heal you, I can own that part of me that then sent the hurt back to you. I can own this. And by taking care of this inner voice quiets. This inner voice doesn't need to yell anymore, or critique, or blame us, or shame us, or control us, or dictate how perfect we have to be, or how in control we have to be, or how neat our children have to be, or how busy we have to be, or how perfect we have to be. It can take a break because we took care of what it's been taken care of all these years. Our higher selves have arrived.
Spectacular. Like, like that is, for me, that's self-love, that's self-compassion, that's showing up to our past and our hurts and our wounds and our, the sorrowful part of ourselves, and reclaiming our sense of power. That's a really potent. I hope everyone got that. Go back, rewind, and go claim that process, because that's really, really gold. So I'd love to ask a question, a very practical, women struggling. Sometimes they look at their current life and go, I can't leave that job because I don't have a stable income. I can't pursue that because of, I'm looking after elderly parents. Whatever their story is, can you speak about how to reconcile that and still honor our hearts and take that action, or how you did that?
There's two answers. There's the pragmatic answer, and then there's the spiritual answer. So there's two levels we always operate. Well, there's four levels we always operate from. There's the inner child that's hurt, the ego that will protect us from hurt, the adult in us that will want a pragmatic solution, and then the higher self, or the truth of us, that will recognize, if this is where I'm at, this is where I need to be. So in higher self, there's no resistance to what is. This is where I need to be. How do I know this is where I need to be? Because this is where I am. So the ultimate in what spiritual guides call acceptance is not endurance or tolerating or putting up with. It's recognizing, if this is what's in my world, this is where I am, and this is what I embrace and need to bring love and grace to. That's the higher self speaking. The pragmatic self may decide, yeah, this is where I'm at. And as much as I accept I need to care for someone or sacrifice an aspect of my personal freedom right now, where is it I can have personal freedom or personal empowerment, and to bring all of me to those moments. But life can't be without sacrifice. Life isn't always pleasant. Things are going to happen that we don't prefer happen. Sometimes we think it sucks. But life was happening 13.8 billion years before we arrived. And it will continue long after the blip of us being here. And for us to be here in this moment, to be in this moment, I mean, look at this moment and say, I think I know better for life, or how life should unfold. That's this. That's the ego saying, I prefer things different. Because the ego can't live in the here and now. The ego can only live in the past or in the future. I want a different future. I want things to be different. I don't want this. The us that is us can be here and love here and bring grace to here and bring presence to here. There's a wonderful story I heard. I cannot give attribution, but thank you for giving me your story. I can't remember who gave it to me. They were impatiently with their elderly father, and each visit felt like a sacrifice and obligation. Okay, how long can I give? Because then I've got to rush back to the kids, and I've got to feed the kids, and I've got so much going on. And he doesn't seem to understand. And every time I'm with him, I'm doing the best I can. Can't he see I'm doing the best I can? And every time she went to leave, her father would say, so when are you coming back? And she felt so obligated and so under pressure because of that, until one day she realized, this is where we're at. My father is in need. I am here. This is the reality of it. How can I bring all of me and all of my presence and all of my love and my grace? I'm visiting anyway. How do I show up fully to here? That's accepting here and now. And she did. And she gave all of herself, and they laughed and they looked at photos, and he wasn't tense. And he didn't ask her when she left, when are you coming back next time? Because she hadn't been scarce with her presence, he didn't feel she was scarce. Because she was fully present, he felt the presence. We are creating our reality. If we're going to be impatient with this reality, we're going to feel the reality's not good enough. It's how it must be. It's how it must be, which doesn't mean to say I don't get impatient with reality. I speak from experience, not from perfection.
Yes, that being present to the moment, it's such a, I think the story that you shared there is very relatable. Personally, I can very much relate to that. So thank you for that. One of the things that you tie together so beautifully each time is that you do speak so well to the challenging emotions. And I know that shame is one of the ones that you also speak really well to. I'd love it if you could share a little bit more around that, Remi.
Oh, this is such a big topic. Ooh. So we have major emotions: happiness, sadness, disappointment, enjoyment or excitement, fear. They're the basic emotions. But I believe underlying all of them, and what can permeate and poison any moment, is shame. And shame, there's a difference between blame and shame. Blame is and I don't even like that language. I make a mistake. I spill this glass of water. I make a mistake. Shame is I am a mistake for spilling the water. The difference between I did something I'm not pleased with versus I am not pleasing. So shame is an inbuilt sense of I'm not enough. It's me that should be ashamed. It's me that is shame, not I don't feel good about what happened. And knowing that difference can be very empowering, because you can make a mistake and feel ashamed. That's healthy shame. I hurt that person's feelings. It wasn't my intention. I feel bad about it and I'll make good. Shame will say, I'm a terrible person, and will believe it's permanent, that the stain is there forever. And that's a very non-compassionate way to live with ourselves. And anyone living in shame will hear what I just said as judgment. So you know you're in shame. If you just heard me say that's an uncompassionate way to live, you will feel ashamed of that comment that I just said. That's what shame does. It turns regular feedback and regular observation into a reason to feel worse about ourselves. And it will then do something to make bad of the person or the situation itself. Shame wants to share. It wants to permeate and spread. So me saying to someone who lives in shame and feels this shame within them will hear the sentence, having this is an uncompassionate way to live. They will feel shame. They will then possibly not be able to handle the feeling of shame, which is completely understandable. And because they don't know how to sit with that discomfort, they may, not always, want to offload it onto, I shouldn't have said it, or I was judging them, or I don't understand. And so offloading shame means we never deal with the shame. We're constantly offloading it onto the situation. Well, it's because this happened, or you don't understand, or if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't. And it becomes this constant offloading, because shame, sitting with shame, doesn't seem possible to the person stuck in shame. The well under the shame feels unfillable. It just feels unfillable. There is a void under that. Doesn't have to stay like this. Don't have to keep living like this if you relate to what I'm saying, but that is how this person feels about their reality. They are stuck in it forever. There is nothing they can do about it. If they try to face their shame, they'll feel overwhelming grief, anger, sadness, and it feels like it'll never end. So rather than do that, they just keep pushing it away. And so what are the consequences of shame? We start to dissociate from ourselves and start speaking in the third person. So I mean me when I say this. So the sentence healthily would be, I didn't feel good. People don't feel good when that happens. They just they dissociate it away onto something else. They deflect. I'll say to somebody who lives in shame directly, that didn't feel good, and they will deflect it. It wasn't that big a deal. Shame means that we will make minimum what feels maximum to somebody else. So I'm not feeling good about this. You're making too much of a fuss. It'll just keep turning to erode the moment that feels too discomforting to handle because it feels so big. You just said you don't feel good. That means I'm not good. I can't handle that. Stop. And so we don't even know we're doing it. We'll just turn it back. There's like, I counted 42 ways shame will voice disapproval of the moment. 42 ways. It will make light of it, deflect it, minimize it, dissociate from it, deny it. That's not what happened. You're wrong. It will minimize other people's experiences. You're just feeling that because you're too sensitive. This is shame in action. It finds so many ways to minimize the person, the event, because what the person's trying to do is keep a handle on, a lid on their own feelings of discomfort. And the way to do it, they don't know how to go there. They can't open this lid. So they're going to control that. And that's why it can feel very controlling to be with this person. And this isn't a judgment. This is conditioning from childhood that's not being dealt with yet. It's not permanent unless we decide it is. It just isn't. So then, shall we go into what to do to?
Sure.
Yeah. There are other ways we can deflect, but they're the main ways. I can talk later about other ways we deflect and not deal with us. So if you relate to any of this, firstly, my heart is with you. And I know you don't believe me because you live in shame. So it's not possible for you to know that my heart is with you because you don't know how to be with you. And so if this is you, you're hearing that I'm not talking to you because it couldn't possibly be that I have my heart for you or I feel compassion for you. And I feel compassion for that part of you that can't hear that I have compassion. I really get that. That's a really painful way to live. There's a lot to be done with this, but the beginning is, do you relate to this? Let's start with ownership. Let's just start with self-awareness. Do you feel that you are ashamed of you? Do you feel lack of self-worth in you? Do you feel that you're never enough? Do you feel that you do some of the patterns I said, that you deflect, minimize, marginalize, ignore, suppress, act like it's not happening, deny it, defer it, say you'll deal with it later? If you do any of those things, there's potential, not necessarily that this is you. So let's just start with being aware. Now, you're not going to jump to compassion. No one goes from awareness to self-compassion. That's a big step. But we can start with beginning the process that I spoke about earlier. And this is big. Instead of going to deflect, dissociate, deny, defer, and all the other Ds, instead of that firing back, that really hurt me. No, it didn't. That really hurt me. Too big a deal. That really hurt me. Let's talk about it later. That really hurt me. You hurt me. I hurt you. You hurt me. Instead of any of that, just try. Oh, this is a big ask. Don't speak. Attempt to sit with that flooding desire to fire back. Attempt to sit with it. If you can go for 2 seconds before you fire back, you're magnificent. 2 seconds. The next time, if you can get to 5 seconds, amazing. Next time, if you can get to 10 seconds before you fire back, as much as you want, that would be literally mind-blowing. Aim for 20 seconds. If you can get to 20 seconds, in the beginning, it will just be silence with you like this. Is it 20 seconds yet? I'm counting. 15's close enough. And eventually, if you can just practice getting to 20 seconds and then add, once you've built up the ability to pause for 20 seconds, if you can fill the 20 seconds with stillness and not thinking about what you want to say, you're going to know what you want to say. You've practiced this enough times. You've done it thousands of times. But if you can sit with the stillness as well, and there is a stillness in us of, I want to fire back, I want to fire back. I want to fire back. The stillness is, look at me wanting to fire back. The stillness is we become the observer of the desire rather than the person acting on the desire. Do you get the difference? This difference between being the subject, who are we at our core, versus what our mind wants to do, which is not us. And just observe our mind, observe our thoughts. Wow, look at me wanting to strike back. Wow, look at me wanting to offload. Look at me wanting to get this out of me and onto them. And if you can move from just 20 seconds of silence to, I'm going to observe myself wanting to do this thing that makes me feel better. Do that maybe 10 times, 20 times. Then there's going to be 20 seconds of, because you're going to build your muscle around stillness and observation of self. I really want to strike back. And when you're ready, once you've done this 30, 40, 50, 60, however many times it takes, arrive at a place, okay, so I'm still, I'm observing. What is that telling me I haven't faced in me yet? And then you do the process I taught earlier. And that's how you begin it. But in the beginning, the energy is all out here. So if you can't see me, my hands are out. The energy of shame isn't in here. It's too much to bear. I can't sit with so much shame. Here, you have it. And it's this pushing away. It's this thrusting away of life, thrusting away of the pain. It's thrusting away of the hurt. So in the beginning, the earlier techniques, too soon. Let's just start with 2 seconds of still, 5, 15, 20 seconds. Then we're going to fill it with observation of self. Look at me wanting to blah. Look at how much I want to offload. And then we begin the process. Hello, I'm here. And it will be so challenging. The hardest work is the journey to self. But the only way out of the shame is through it. And so we're going to sit with all those moments where it presents, I feel angry, I feel shame. Hey, I'm with you. Feel your anger. I want to strike back. I feel you. You want to strike back. Of course you do. Tell me about that. What is it I need to know? Tell me what you're feeling. And there's a whole script of questions we can ask ourselves. And eventually, the shame itself will know it has a home in us, because we spend years rejecting it, acting like it's not real, acting like it's not really us. It feels rejected. And now this inner child, this little child, is now going to be comforted and reparented the way it never was. And we do that enough. And eventually the child's shame will fade and begin to be what it's meant to be, which is playful and energetic and on our team and with us. But in the beginning, let's just start with that. Let's start with 2 seconds.
Gold. And I think too, I know from my own experience with that, is that with everything you've talked about, the fear was that there wasn't another side, and your testament to, you can sit yourself, you can sit in the pain, and you will get through to the other side. So that's really, that's such a value.
And it won't feel like it when you're in it. You will be in it thinking this is the work. I'm going back to blaming because this is really, and it really is, what you've been doing hurts and will always hurt. What you're now going to do the work will hurt, and eventually it won't. But you are guaranteed to keep hurting, to keep doing it the old way, to be in reactivity. It's guaranteed to continue to hurt. There's no way out.
True. So true. So true. We are nearly out of time. So this is the Becoming Me Again interview series. And I'd just love to offer you the opportunity to, if there's something that you would like to say specifically to the women listening, from yourself to them.
Well, what I love about this journey is it's not advice to anyone. It's more profound than advice or to-dos. It's an invitation to experience ourselves. And that, to me, to be willing to experience myself, know myself, sit with myself, comfort myself, love myself, be compassionate for myself, is a space I never dreamt I'd get to through the doing and the doing and the doing and the success and the success and the success. So I don't have advice for anyone other than, where do you want to sit within you? That would be the question. Where do you want to sit within you? Is it sitting in a space of I'm getting to get, or is it sitting in a space of I'm healing to know I always had? And I think they're the two lives I've been living. Getting more to get what I thought I needed versus healing more to realize it was always here. How good's that?
Yes.
Yes.
So there is one last question that we ask all of the beautiful women that we're interviewing, and that is, what is one thing that you do that takes you to your happy place?
Oh, that's easy. Every morning at the earliest cafe I can find, generally the earliest I can find is 6 a.m., but I'd go earlier if I could. I give myself 1 hour every morning of reflection, study, contemplation, creation. Every morning I give myself that hour. Anywhere I am in the world, I will find a cafe that gives me joy. I will drink my decaffeinated green tea, and I will visit me. That's just my happy place. I could do that 3 times a day, and I have.
That's a beautiful space to be in. I can imagine that, Remi.
Yeah,
just
I love it.
Such richness, isn't it? Just to allow ourselves that space to just stop and reflect and consider.
And before the world's really going, so there's no phone calls or emails or to-dos. It's just very precious reflection time and being time. I was there this morning when they opened, and I just sat looking out the window. It was still dark, and I just sat looking out the window, just reflecting on how I'd like my day to be and the energy I want to come from and where am I growing. And I just sat with it. It was lovely.
And it's a beautiful way to set up the day, isn't it? To actually start in that way often means that the rest of the day flows more smoothly as well, because you've allowed yourself to connect in with what's really true for yourself.
Yes, sometimes it doesn't. I'm so human.
Yeah,
I can do that for an hour in the morning, and like the next phone call, forget everything. I am so human in this process, and I can hear myself not doing what I just intentional living. Be damned, I'm doing something else right now, and I just drop back in. I was like, oh my gosh, and then again, and then and that's, I think, true humanity and humility and compassion. It's not aiming to have the perfect day. It's to have intention and then live our lives and learn from it. And that's the gift, I think, of being gentle and in grace. So yes, intentional and then not.
Yeah, so true. It's real life, isn't it? It's the journey.
Yes, it is. It really is.
And the other thing you just mentioned, gift, actually. So that reminds me that I would love to chat to you about, or have you chat to the beautiful women listening about the gift that you're looking at offering today as well, Remi, because I know it's a fabulous one.
Yeah, thank you for having me here and for inviting me into your beautiful space. I really appreciate it so much. And I trust I've served on some level, even if it's to be a lesson to someone on how not to do something. I trust I've served in some way. And your audience is amazing, and I relate so deeply to people's experience of challenge and trying to make sense of ourselves and make sense of our world. And so I gave a lot of thought to what I'd like to do. And what I've done, I have a program called Braveheart, which talks about everything we've been talking about. As you can tell, I never stop talking, but I want to give some of that program as a gift for free to your listeners and to your viewers and to your posse. And I trust it serves. So we've taken a whole bunch of it and we're just going to give it to them. And should I give the link so they can just have it?
We can have it on the speakers page for you, but if you want to mention it now is fine as well, Remi.
It's Remi Pearson, REMI Pearson.com. Is it a /? Yes. /Braveheart-begin. And my team has put together a whole series of videos where I talk about this in more depth, and they can have it for free as a gift from me to you.
Thank you so much. That's incredible. And we just know from this incredible interview that gift is going to be inspiring and of deep service. So thank you so much. And Remi, thank you for bringing your beautiful brave heart here. And not only that, the real tangible tips and strategies that women can employ. It's just such a powerful tools that you've offered today. And yes, so thank you. And your joy and lightheartedness.
Thank you.
A delight.
Messiness. Let's embrace the messiness. Yes, we're all messy. Thank you for having me. It's been lovely to connect.
Yes, thank you so much, Remi. Again, fabulous wisdom and shared in such a beautiful, inspiring way. So thank you so very much for being here. And also for being here, our gorgeous listeners. Again, thank you so much for listening and sharing. We'd love to hear more about what's happening along your journey, what pieces dropped in from Remi's talk today, and the other speakers, of course. And we do definitely look forward to sharing this with you again tomorrow. Much love.